Good morning and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. It is, what day is it today? It's Tuesday, the 10th of October, 2023. So, thanks to everyone who came along last night to the Labour Social, our first in-person event that we held, along with Marina Perkis and Supertansky and Phil and Femi. It was a good night, and thanks to everyone who came along. Thanks to everyone who watched on the chat, watched along on the live stream. I'm really sorry about the sound. Like, one of the reasons why we started a bit late yesterday was because of the sound issues. But we'll talk about that in a moment. First of all, I just want to say a little bit about Rachel Reeves' speech yesterday at the Labour conference, in which she unveiled the idea of Bidenomics. I mean, Securonomics, which is basically Bidenomics. I think there's very few people out, well, anyone who's watched the TV show Silicon Valley will find it difficult not to giggle at the term middle out for various reasons. And I just want to say to Mike saying, wasn't Graham wearing the same clothes yesterday? No, this is a different shirt. a different shirt because I got curry on my shirt last night, but we'll come back to that in a moment. So Rachel Reeves yesterday laid out this idea of the end of trickle-down economics, which is something that Biden in America 3 years ago put forward as one of the sort of tentpoles of his campaign to be president. And with some of the restructuring act, or the transport and the infrastructure act and the inflation defeating act, or whatever they ended up having to call it to get it through both houses in Congress in America, that effectively he has done a lot, and he is very focused, if you look at what Biden's done in America, on getting jobs in places like the Rust Belt in America, who became disaffected and voted for Trump out of the fact that they thought they weren't getting anything out of the government, in the same way that a lot of people in the so-called Red Wall up here in the north voted for Brexit, thinking that they were going to, stick one to the Tories, weirdly, and also because they felt left behind. And now we have entered a new whole, I mean, there's being left behind and then there's being left for dead. And pretty much everyone up here in the north has been pretty much left for dead by the Tories, and in the southwest as well, and a lot of places in the southeast. I mean, yeah, and people in London. Actually, let's just say that all over the UK, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and all parts of England, there are people who have just been absolutely, well and truly, effed over by the Conservatives. And it is a damning indictment that the economy, I'll keep banging on about this, the economy hasn't grown in over 16 years. It's not substantially grown when looked at in dollars, in US dollars. It's interesting when the Tories talk about the economy growing, they're always talking in pounds, because the pounds that you have in your pocket are worth less than they used to be versus the euro or versus the dollar 10 years ago, 13 years ago, before the Tories got into power. And one of the big factors for the loss of that money, loss of the value, I should say, of the money, is Brexit. Is the Tories' flagship policy of Brexit, which has been an absolute unmitigated disaster, unfortunately. Actually, well, I say unfortunately, I mean, it's unfortunate that we did it. There was no way it was going to be anything other than a disaster, so fortune doesn't really come into it. The idea of Howard's put in the chat about Reaganomics. Yeah, the idea of taking a political economic standpoint and trying to give it a little catchy title. So obviously Reevesnomics doesn't really work. Rachelonomics doesn't really work. One of the things that Rachel Reeves said in her speech yesterday as well, which she pointed out, is the fact that the post of Chancellor of the Exchequer has been around for 800 years and have never had a female Chancellor of the Exchequer. We've never had a woman be Chancellor of the Exchequer before, so that is quite exciting, the prospect of that happening. And she is setting herself up as the Iron Chancellor. As you know, I mean, I don't think in the past Labour have been particularly good at sort of messaging and getting these ideas across. They've always been a bit woolly, but they seem to be hitting their stride now and being a bit more strident. You see how I put those two words together? In terms of getting their message out of what they want the voters to think about them. And this is a canny move by Labour, I've got to say. And I know we've been critical about Labour's comms in the past, but when they stand up and make speeches at conference and they go down really well, like Rachel Reeves' speech did yesterday, it's because they have spent probably months agonising over every word of that speech to get it exactly right, to appeal to, not just Labour voters, like myself, or Labour members, or as they call it, Labour faithful, which I never like that expression because it just sounds a little bit too much like a cult. But yeah, they have to appeal, and Phil just he puts this very well. It's not about us necessarily. I'm going to vote Labour, whatever. Phil is going to vote Labour, whatever. I think a lot of you watching this are going to vote Labour, whatever, because we need the Tories out in this election. What they're trying to do is appeal to people who are scared of a Labour government. And let's make no bones about it. This is why the Tories won at such a majority in 2019. It wasn't to do with Brexit. It wasn't actually necessarily to do with Boris Johnson. It was that people were scared. Okay, look, well, slightly, but the main factor, as far as I see it, and I might be wrong, but I think the main factor, talking to voters, talking to people who voted Conservative in that 2019 election for the first time in their lives, and have since said they'll never do it again, but they were scared into doing it, scared by the fear of having a Labour government, which they saw as going to be a tax and spend crazy party and not have that fiscal responsibility that they expect from the Tories. Ironically, because the Tories have given us no fiscal responsibility whatsoever over the last 13 years of this cavalcade of carnage that has been the Tory party's reign of error. And talking to people at the conference, there's so many people with stories about how their lives have just gone to shit under the Tories because of the policies and the lack of support. And people talking about, well, what if I need to call an ambulance? It might not turn up. What if I need to go to A&E? I might be waiting 24 hours. Will I die on a trolley outside a ward because they've got no beds? And these are questions that people are having to ask now with this country. It was just taken as read 16 years ago when Labour were in. If you hurt yourself and you went into A&E, I remember my partner at the time. She hurt a leg and needed to get it X-rayed, and she was in and out of the A&E at the Royal in Liverpool, the main hospital in Liverpool, within an hour. She was in. She was X-rayed. She was bandaged up. She was sent out on crutches within an hour. Now it's like, just see you in a couple of days. You just wait there in the waiting room in agonising pain. Would you like some aspirin while you wait? So one of the things that Labour are trying to do is assure those timid voters, maybe I just imagine them like, I was going to sound really patronising, but like a bunch of chickens going blah, blah, blah. All sort of running together and very sort of skittish about what's going to happen. There are some voters like that, and especially older voters who still wang on about Gordon Brown selling off the nation's gold for a little bit less than he would have got if he had sold it a few years later. And it's like, oh, that's good hindsight you got there, Captain Hindsight. Oh, don't call me that. Okay, I won't. But, oh, if only he had been able to see the future. But the idea that we should base our national wealth on a commodity that goes up and down in value, so with such volatility, and we don't control that in any way, shape or form because we've got no gold that we mine of our own, it does seem a bit mad to me. But yeah, people still go on about stuff like that. And what they want more than anything is that security that they feel that the Tories give them when it comes to economics. And I know that idea is just crazy because the Tories have given us nothing but carnage, economic carnage over the last few years, over the last 13 years. Austerity, Brexit, the cack-handed response to COVID, the cack-handed response to the fuel crisis, and then the mini budget, which just blew the bloody doors off our economy, and we're still not recovered from that. Inflation is still at 6.7%, isn't it? Last time I checked, still incredibly high. Food inflation is like at 13%. Everything's gone up in price, and getting a cab to the place yesterday, which I had to do because I had all my equipment with me. I'd normally get the bus, but getting on with a big wheelie case full of camera stuff is a bit difficult. But yeah, just talking to the cab driver, and he was just saying, yeah, you know, I hope you guys get in the next election because we just can't put up with this anymore, you know. And talking about his life and what, you know. It's no one's having a good time in particular at the moment. So a big part of Labour's push at this conference, which is like going to be the last conference before the general election, is to assure those timid voters who think, oh, well, what are Labour going to do with the economy? That Labour are going to be the sensible ones, which is a bit of a switcheroo from just a few years ago, where the Tories, for some reason, were seen as the sensible ones under Boris Johnson, which I will never understand. But yeah, sure, too long didn't watch. Rachel Reeves' speech went down a treat yesterday as she talked about ending this idea that we're going to cling to this trickle-down theory of economics where, you know, the money trickles down to us. Instead, we're going to have the middle out theory from Silicon Valley and also from Bidenomics, stealing a line from the Bidenomic Bible, which is interesting because if you go back to the 1980s, please don't. It was a terrible time. Thatcher was in power. Good songs though, good movie, very good movies. I'll give it that, but terrible fashion and terrible politics. It was Reaganomics, which was mentioned in the chat just then, that influenced Thatcher in the UK. So it was kind of like this American influence. So Bidenomics is now influencing the way that we're going to go in the next few years in the UK under a new Labour government with Rachel Reeves as Chancellor. And, you know, just as an aside on Rachel Reeves in general, I think she's great. I think she's really, really good. She's really competent. She comes across as someone who's across her brief. She's not just making it up as she goes along like a lot of Tories are. And I'm quite excited about having these people who are leading Labour at the moment in power and seeing what they can do to improve people's lives. And I hope they don't let me down. I hope they don't let my family down. I hope they don't let you down. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll just talk a little bit about the event last night and a couple of things. First of all, I'm really sorry for starting so late today. The reason being, if you want to know, is that I'm at my parents' house in Liverpool at the moment. My dad is ill and he has carers that come in and see him a few times a day. And they were in the room that I film in when I needed to get set up, so I was a bit late getting set up. I wasn't still set up from yesterday's morning brew because I took all my equipment to the Camp of Fairness last night for the Labour Social Live event as such, which was I was really stressed about it because I thought it wasn't going to be great, but it was amazing. It was better than I could have imagined, and I think that the panel really excelled. And the people there, we were sold out. It was standing room only, which is phenomenal for a little YouTube channel that only started 6 months ago, to gain that kind of traction and gain that kind of like capturing people's imagination in some way. So big shout out to my co-hosts Femi and Marina and Supertansky, and of course Phil Morehouse, who's been an absolute. He's been the powerhouse, not just the Morehouse, but a powerhouse behind Labour Social and getting this crazy project off the ground of, you know, trying to create that community that we have with you in the chat and in real life as well, which we would like to do more of these events as we go forward towards the next election. And also, you know, we'll be talking about things like what we can do individually, sort of activism for getting the vote out, because the really important thing in the next election for you watching this and for me and everyone who wants to see a Labour government is to get out there and get people to vote. Because Phil made a really good point about this. Again, you know, some elections come down to, like, I don't know, 27 votes. I think it was Andrea Leadsom or one of those vile, or Andrea Jenkins or one of those vile Tories who got in 2015 by 27 votes. You know, that's not even a bus full of people. That's a mildly. That's not even enough for a wedding, is it? That's an unsuccessful wedding. It's not. It's 27 people. In fact, if only half of them have voted the other way, if they voted for Labour, then the Tories would have only had a majority of 11 rather than 12. But yeah, thank you very much in the chat there. Stephanie Wilson saying the Labour Social Live event was great. Thank you. I'm really sorry about the sound at the beginning. My friend AB, who has been on Labour Social actually, he did an audio recording of it, and I'm going to overlay that onto the the live stream because I realized for the first 10-15 minutes the sound was absolutely messing up. And trying to produce the show, read the comments, look at the super chats, and trying to get the production done so the camera was in the right place and the sound was working. We had like 3 people all standing around my laptop going, "Have you tried this? Have you tried that?" Because the sound was just awful and we didn't quite know why. But in the end, old trusty here, my microphone, which was bought for me by one of our viewers over in Manchester. Thank you very much. We just put that. I just put that on the table, and it was all right. It was all right after that. So very sorry about the first 10 minutes. If anyone turned off in the first 10 minutes, if you want to skip that and just get to the bit where the sound sort of improves. Scandal says, "I love Phil's channel. Makes me grin when I see someone watching it. By the way, my name's Dan, and I like talking about politics." Yeah, I like that. Phil's got his own catchphrase, hasn't he? My name's Phil, and I like talking about politics. Where's G there? Thank you very much for the £1 super chat, mate. Really appreciate it. Royston Smith got into, isn't that where League of Gentlemen's set? Royston Smith got into Southampton Itchen with a lead of just 31 votes. Yeah, so it's really important that we get everyone out to vote. And what I think is going to happen in the next election, and this happens, when any government has been in charge for a while, and it's going to happen particularly with the Tories because they're so bad at what they do. Their voters aren't going to turn out. So it's not necessarily about general elections. It's not necessarily about people switching votes because that's difficult. And although I do think there's going to be a lot of people switching their votes to Labour in this upcoming election and to the Lib Dems, or just away from the Tories, there are going to be a lot of Tory voters who are going to stay at home. Good. Leave them. Let them stay at home. Don't let them not vote. If I'll probably have it out with Phil on this because he always wants people to vote even at this small of paper, but I'd rather they just stayed at home in case they get into the polling booth and their muscle memory just goes conservative because they've been voting conservative all their lives. I'd rather they just stayed at home. And if you look at what happened in Georgia in America when they managed to get 2 Democratic senators in the 2020 race, that was all about getting people out to vote, getting people out, and that's going to be the most important thing, getting our side out. Not discouraging the other side to stay at home if that's what they want to do, but making sure that every single person who is thinking of voting Labour or Lib Dem, depending on the constituency, because we are going to get tactical in this election, because it's not enough for Labour just to win this. We need to annihilate the Tories as well, and we can't do that without the support of the Lib Dems and the SNP, to be honest with you. But I think the SNP, they're going to lose half their seats in Scotland the way things are looking, especially after that by-election result in Rutherglen last week. It doesn't look great for the SNP. I think they've done their dash. I think a lot of people have become dispirited with them. They pushed for independence, and that was going to be a big thing. And then with what's happened with this corruption scandal and whether anything comes of it or not, they've been tainted by that because we hold parties that are not conservatives to a much higher standard than we do the right wing, the parties like the Tories and Reclaim and Reform UK, they get away with murder. Because their voters don't care. They don't really care about integrity and honour and respect. They just care about winning. They just want to, put the footy scarf around their neck and tie it really tight so it cuts off the bloodstream to the brain. Bigger than 97, says Gary Arnold. That's the hope. So in 97, we got the Tories down. I'm saying we, I had nothing to do with it. Although I did vote. It was the first election I voted in. But Labour and the Lib Dems, they did have a little bit of an actual pact, the non-aggression pact, with Paddy Ashdown and Tony Blair. And they managed to get the Tories down to just 150 odd seats. 150 odd seats. So maybe this time we'll even smash that. And I think that Uxbridge, and we talked about this a lot, the Uxbridge by-election, which was caused by Boris Johnson resigning in protest. You can't fire me, I quit. Yeah, well done, Boris. Off you jolly well, F-U-C-K. The Uxbridge by-election was a little bit derailed by ULEZ because it hadn't kicked in yet. And Phil makes a really good point about this, where he talks about ULEZ, and he says most of the people who thought they were going to be affected now know that they're not affected by it, because most cars, it's like 95% or something of cars people have in those areas of Greater London that have now been encompassed into the ULEZ scheme everywhere inside the M25, pretty much. That most of those cars are compliant, even cars that are sort of, it's any car after 2006, I think, that's petrol, and any car after 2015, that's diesel. But there are diesel cars and petrol cars that are earlier than that have efficient engines that still pass. So you type in your registration number, your license plate number, onto the website, and it'll tell you whether you have to pay or not. And the vast majority of us don't have to pay. And it's something that you also have in other countries, in other cities around the country. It might not be for all private cars, but certainly in Newcastle for cabs and for taxis and for buses, they have to comply with ULEZ regulations, which are just, they're fine. They're not so draconian that everyone needs to go out and buy a new car. It's not that bad. And something that a friend of mine pointed out last week, he said, well, if you live in London and you have a car, it's a bit of a luxury. It is a bit of a luxury, and a lot of people don't have a car in London because they can't afford to have a car in London. They can't afford to park it anywhere because it's so expensive. We parked for when I went to London to see Blair. My mate took me to the Wembley, and I was like, we should just park a few miles away and get the tube along. She's like, no, we'll park at the actual site. It's got to be expensive. Oh my God. I think it was 50 quid. I think it was £50 to park the freaking car for a few hours. Do you know what I mean? It was like, what? That's more than you rent for the day. Which has amazing public transport, as it is in other parts of the country where you really rely on your car because there's no bus services on a Sunday, and the buses stop at 6 o'clock in the evening. So good luck getting back from work late, people. Walk maybe in the snow. Anyway, thanks. Living at the other in the country makes it difficult to find out what's happening. Yeah, I think that's what the ULEZ thing, the election in Uxbridge came down to. But it was a tight one thing. I mean, there was only a few hundred votes in it. I mean, it wasn't like a massive romping win for the Tories by any stretch of the imagination. And I think they might lose it. I think they might lose it in the upcoming general election. Uxbridge will go red. It will go to Labour. I think a lot of seats around the country are going to go to Labour. And what Starmer and Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner are doing, putting themselves forward as a credible, government in waiting. I completely get it. I completely understand why they're doing what they're doing. And I said this yesterday, I think, at the talk, that people talk about, Labour are 20 points ahead in the polls. Now the time to be bold. And I'm like, no. Now is the time not to be bold. Just keep doing whatever it is you are doing. And it was described as Starmer trying to walk across an ice rink holding a priceless Ming vase or something, and he can't slip. He can't slip until the general election, because things can happen in politics. None of us can be that 100% certain that the Tories will be thrown out in the next election. We don't know what's going to happen. They might get rid of Rishi Sunak, and get Boris Johnson back in, heaven forfend, and somehow. And people go, oh yeah, I remember Boris Johnson. He was great. If anyone does think that, can you please, like I said yesterday, get them to watch the Partygate documentary, dramatisation on Channel 4. It's well worth watching. Scandal says, hit the like button, guys. Let's boot this channel as much as we can. Thank you very much, Scandal UK. Really, really appreciate it. And like I say, sorry about the technical problems yesterday. I'm sorry I was late getting started today. It's just a bit full on at the moment, as you can possibly imagine, but it was really good. We, after the talk, we had a few drinks in the bar. The bar was open for an hour or so afterwards. It was great to meet some of the people in real life that have been chatting away in the chat for so long. That was wonderful, and it was people identifying themselves. Me in the chat. My name is this, and that was good. I really enjoyed that part of it. I really enjoyed chatting with people who enjoy the channel and share our values. I mean, one of the things that I was chatting with one person about was they were telling me how difficult it's been over the last few years for their mental health. And they need us. They need not like me, but I mean they need us as in our community, people like you watching this and chatting and things, to assure people that they're not, that they haven't gone wrong effectively. They're not wrong. The society that we've built under the Tories over the last few years, that's what's wrong. You're not going crazy. This is the problem. And there are other people who see that same problem and identify that problem and also want to do what we can about it. It might only be a little, but it's whatever we can to get the Tories out and start the process of rebuilding. And it's going to be a bit of a process, and it's going to be difficult. No one made a video game after Doom of them actually rebuilding Earth after it had been destroyed by demon spawn, because that wouldn't have been as exciting. Rebuilding never is. And the Labour Party are going to have the tabloid press against them the whole way, and the Tories pretty much know they're going to lose. Like, you saw the images from their conference where Rachel Reeves, you couldn't get in. You couldn't get into that speech because the room was packed. There's so many people at the conference. All the talks, you just go along. There's so many people at these things, and the Tory conference was half empty. It was quite embarrassing, really. I mean, even Angela Rayner on Sunday, she managed to get quite a big crowd in. No, sorry, it was sold out. Not sold out, but all the seats were taken in the main hall, so you couldn't get in. If you turned up late, they wouldn't let you in. And she was on at like 11 in the morning on a Sunday, and there's that sort of feeling amongst the Labour lot that this could be it. Probably is, but we don't want to jinx it. But the Tories, they are deflated. They are just, there's nothing left in them. They're just spouting out nonsense about culture wars and trying to destroy everything on the way out, like what happened in Mozambique when the Portuguese pulled out. They poured concrete down wells. I can't get that image out of my head of them, these settlers, they're coming over, and the colonizers, they go, oh, we're leaving now, but before we go, and they pour concrete down wells, and they burn ships, and they burn cars, and destroy buildings and stuff on the way out. Like, why? What's wrong with you? Oh, well, if we can't have it, no one can. But there is a feeling like with the Tories that I sort of pick up on, that they're sort of like, oh, we'll let Labour get in for a few years, and I think Murdoch's on board with this plan with the Tories, that we'll let Labour in for a few years. They can take all the flack for the bad economy that we're going to have for the next few years, because the economy takes a long time to get back on its feet. It's going to take a long time after all the damage the Tories have done. And obviously Labour will say, sorry, but this is the Tories' fault, and we're trying our very best to make this better. But at the same time, the economic factors will be against Labour no matter what they do for a few years. The worry is that if the economy hasn't picked up in the 5 years of a future Labour government, we could be looking at the threat of the Tories coming back in 2029 with an even crazier leader than before, perhaps Suella Braverman, which would not be good for anyone who is, a human, because they want to get rid of the Human Rights Act, because why would you want that? TMS said people in England voted for those things twice. When I voted for Ed and Corbyn, so I came to the conclusion that if the majority continue to wrong vote regardless. Well, yeah, I mean, the government that we get, I know it's not like a particularly functioning democracy, and I know that a lot of us want PR, myself included, but it is a bit of a reflection of the nation. And although the nation is completely cajoled and sent down crazy rabbit holes by the tabloid press in particular, who are terrible for this kind of thing, but also by the BBC and by ITV and by Channel 4, these broadcasters whose job it is to broadcast the freaking news, they broadcast a lot of opinion for news stations. I mean, GB News pretends that it's not even like a news station, it's just an opinion station, apparently, which is, slightly more crazy than you could possibly imagine. Skylar says, even though I wasn't there, I really enjoyed seeing you on the panel together. You, Femi, Phil, Marina, and Tansky, fab. You spoke a lot of honest wisdom. Well done. Thank you very much, Skylar. It like I said, it was really, really enjoyable. I'm really glad I'm here in my hometown in Liverpool. I'm enjoying giving people a little mini sort of Beatles tours and telling people the history of the place. I think I was driving Tansky up the wall yesterday because it was like, well, this was the road on which William Gladstone was born, and this was the street where the officers, the White Star Line, who owned the Titanic, that was that. So that's why it said Liverpool on the back. You don't want to be getting a guided tour around Liverpool by ADHD Graham, like pointing at every little. So these are down this street. That's where they filmed that Hovis ad with the little boy. Anyway, Nick and Diff says back again. Did the drop out? Oh dear, that's no good. The economy doesn't need rebuilding; it needs transitioning, says Howard. Yeah, Grim Fandango, Grim Fang 999. Manny Calavera says Keynesian policies tend to restore the economy within 3 years, and they are proposing some fairly strong Keynesian policies. Could be more, but they need to cost so the media doesn't twist things. Well, exactly. Well, here's the thing, right? You've got your sort of the media reality. I struggle to call it reality because it's not really reality, is it? The media ideas that they put into people's heads, these nefarious ideas. But then you've got reality. You've got the actual lived experience of people in the UK, and no one has not noticed the price of food going up, their bills going up, the heating bills going up, the price of their fuel for their car going up. Like everything has inflated under the Tories. And when they talk about, well, we've brought down inflation to half, they haven't done that yet. That's what he promised at the beginning of the year. In fact, none of Rishi Sunak's 5 pledges have been achieved at all in any way, shape or form. The only reason why fewer people came across this year across the channel in small boats was just because of the weather. Nothing to do with Tory policy whatsoever, which hasn't changed, by the way. I mean, they talk about threatening to send people to Rwanda or put them on prison barges, but the policy hasn't changed. It's let people in. So we have this boogeyman to scare people with, scapegoats, and you can win votes, and essentially just leave them to rot. Like don't look at their assessments. Don't try and get them into the country as a citizen. Don't officiate their claim for asylum. Just leave them on a waiting list. There's over 100,000 people waiting to find out if they're going to get asylum in the UK. 170,000, I think, is even up since I last checked. I think it was 170,000 people, and none of those people can work. Even in America, the country of like, oh, we're going to build a wall against Mexico. Even in America, if you are claiming asylum from Central America or wherever in the world, you can work while your claim is being processed. This country, you have to be unemployed. It's just, and live off the state and be given like £34 a week. It's just pathetic. It's painful what we do to refugees in this country. Absolutely painful. Anyway, I've gone on a bit because obviously I was a bit late getting started, but I've got to head back to the conference now. I'm going to be meeting up with Tansky and with Phil, and we are doing a special live show from the conference today. Now, we have a little bit of a schedule clash because we were at 12 o'clock in the if you want to come along, if you're at the conference, we're in the ACC and we're in room 22 downstairs. So if you go room 22 where they have all the pods where they have the talks, just walk straight forward and we're right at the end. We were supposed to be on at 12. We got moved to 2. And then I realised when I looked at the schedule that that's the time that Keir Starmer's making his speech today. Should be at 2 o'clock. I don't know if that's moved again, but it should be at 2 o'clock. So we're like, oh, can we move it till 3 o'clock? So we might be on at 3. So just keep your eyes peeled. I won't be doing it on my decent camera here. I'll just be doing it on my phone. So again, we might have problems with the sound, but we'll see how we get on. But yeah, please join us for that at maybe 2, maybe 3, and it's going to be me and Phil and Tansky, and we're just going to be talking about how Labour could possibly improve its communications. So that's that improve its comms, so especially when it comes to social media and what Labour could do better. I'm not necessarily going to just slag off Labour the whole time, slag off Labour's comms. That's not our intention. We're just trying to offer some constructive criticism, so please join us for that this afternoon, and if not, you can watch it on catch up anyway. So I'll have to love you and leave you. Thank you very much for everyone in the chat who's been absolutely awesome. Thanks to everyone who came along last night, obviously, and thanks to everyone who's watching along at home and putting the comments in. I was reading the comments as we were doing it. It was a bit difficult trying to juggle everything, but yeah, I did read a lot of the comments and they were great. After like the sound is crap, Graham, sort the sound out. Once that little tsunami of grief was over, and the sound was okay, it was okay. It wasn't perfect, but yeah, these things are sent to test us. There's a million things that can go wrong when you're hosting a live event, and yeah, one of them can be the sound, which is kind of devastating because that's, you know, it's quite nice to see everyone, but you really need to hear what they're saying. So thank you very much to everyone. Bye all, says Audrey, and we've got Hugh in there. We've got Daily Blase. Hi Darren, thanks for coming along into the chat there. We've got Jan, and we've got Tox, and we've got Christopher Bowles in there. The non-working thing was a Labour measure. They processed claims quicker. Well, Christopher Bowles, I think that's one thing that Labour need to reverse once they get into power. So hopefully that'll be very soon. So I'll be back tomorrow, definitely, for another morning brew at 9:30 in the morning, and we'll be back in this afternoon either at 2 o'clock or at 3 o'clock for Labour Social Live. At the conference, at the actual conference, we're going to be a bit limited on data, so the talk's only probably going to go for 45 minutes maximum, because we're only going to be able to buy 1 hour of data, and you don't want to know how much it is to buy for internet Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi in the conference center is awful. That's why I've not been doing any live videos from the conference center. Can barely get a signal on my phone, and yeah, I may as well tell you. So if you want to buy internet, like premium internet, so you can actually have internet at the conference center, it's at £270 for the duration of the event. I know, yeah. So we're not paying that, but yeah, we will have a little bit of limited internet time for probably an hour, just to be able to stream that this afternoon. So, but we're not paying that. Don't worry about super chats. But yeah, it's just, some people have got to make the money, I guess. All right, until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care, and hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.